Hello everyone. I think that probably many of you found my channel through the fossil table build video that I did, and that was a fast forward video, no speaking, just a little bit of music while I blazed through the details of that build. And I really like that kind of video, and I want to continue to make them. But the types of projects that I'm making are time consuming, and I have a full-time job, and there's just not going to be a whole lot of those projects I'm going to be able to complete in a year, and I'd like to get more content out at a regular basis. So I think I'm going to build videos as I go with a little bit more detail, maybe less editing, and then at the end of the project make a video similar to the one I did for the fossil table, where I just move very fast, maybe reference back with some links. If folks want a little bit more detail on any specific process, they can reference back to videos that I do as I go. So that's the direction I believe I'm heading with the channel, and what I'm going to try for this next build that I'm about halfway through at this point. But curious to hear your thoughts, what you think of that, and for now, this is part one of the twisted table that I'm currently working on. Thanks for joining. So here's a sketch of the table that I want to build. It's not going to look exactly like this. I tend to model until I have something that I like and have more changes in my head that I don't feel like getting into the computer, because there's no point. I'm not trying to sell these plans. I just want to get things clear in my mind before I start building. That's really how I use these programs. So what you'll see in the finished product isn't going to look like this, and I think it's going to look a lot better, but we'll see how it goes. What I'm going to cover in this video are the forms I'm going to use to build those twisty legs. And the first thing I need to do is cut some squares of MDF that will be stacked up to make the twisty form. So I use my circle center marker to mark the center of squares. It happens to work for both, and then drill the centers out and cut some plugs on the table saw that'll be used to keep those holes aligned so that the squares all twist around the same center. So I use that plug, like I said, a little bit of glue in between the squares. And I use a ruler to offset the edge of each square the same amount, so that each one twists just a little bit. And by the time I'm finished with the stack, I have a little greater than a 90-degree twist in the whole thing overall. Now, instead of sanding down all that MDF on the edges to get a flat surface, or the sides to get a flat surface, I use auto body filler to fill those gaps first and significantly reduce the amount of sanding I need to do. So this is the first time I played around with this stuff, and it sure sets up on you fast. I think I maybe used a little bit too much of the hardener. And I sand that filler with a dowel wrapped in sandpaper. So my first attempt at making these legs was a combination of steam bending and bent lamination that ended up being a failure, but I'm going to show it anyway because I find that seeing what didn't work is as useful as seeing what did. So here I'm resawing the laminations that I'm first going to steam bend and then glue together. The issue here was that they were just too thin. They end up cupping. Wood really doesn't want to twist like these forms force it to, and ultimately a thicker piece worked better, but these thin pieces just cupped too much as you tried to twist them. This was a challenging clamp up out of the steam box, trying to get these twisted fast enough so they didn't cool off. Definitely a challenging thing to do. They're fighting me the whole way. It's just not a very easy bend to do. I used epoxy to give myself more open time, which I certainly needed because this also was very challenging. I thought that using hose clamps to have pressure evenly spread through the whole length of the form would be a good way to have even clamping pressure and not spend a bunch of money on new clamps. And it worked okay, but it was hard to get enough pressure. Not sure what it made a difference, but it certainly couldn't take the cup out of those laminates. Once they hardened that way after the steam bend, I think it was a lost cause. So with my little helper, I unclamp this and see that indeed it's just not going to work out. Painful after all this work, and I seriously questioned the complexity of the legs I was trying to make, but I really liked the design and didn't want to give up on it yet. So although this one ended up being firewood, I decided to try something else. I'm not going to have as much twist as that initial form. What I'm doing instead is a two-part steam bend with a solid piece of thicker wood that ended up not tending to cup nearly as much. I steam bend it twice, once on this minimally curvy form, and then the second time on this form that has nearly as much twist as the initial ones that you saw when I was trying to do the laminate idea. And this worked out. It didn't cup. The solid piece had more structural integrity than those thin piece, I should say thicker piece, had more tendency not to cup than the thinner laminates, and it worked out, and I think these are going to come together as useful legs. I had multiple clamp ups going on at the same time to get this done. So that's all for now. Next time we'll get into the top, which went a lot smoother for me. Thanks for joining, everyone.